Chapter 1741. Don't waste a saint-level spirit fruit, okay? Family Head Yu smiled sarcastically at Family Head Zhu. The bloodshed vermilion fruit was good stuff, but it would be wasted if one did not know how to eat it. The sickly Zhu family had been sick for 8 to 10 years, and he still wanted to get up? TSK. What could he do if he got up? His cultivation base was much lower than his opponent's. What future did he have? He might as well give the bloodshed vermilion fruit to the young talents of the Yu family. For example, his eldest son, Yu Hui. Family Head Yu's eyes glinted, and he said to Family Head Zhu in an indifferent tone, "How about this, Family Head Zhu, name a price, and I'll buy the bloodshed vermilion fruit from you. You know, even if you find a way to eat that sickly Zhu family head, he can only evolve from a cripple to a normal person. It's very rare for an ordinary person to live a prosperous life on the Shuntian continent." Family Head Zhu's expression was very ugly, but he pursed his lips and turned away, ignoring Family Head Yu. Family Head Yu said angrily, "Zhu Bin, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. The Zhu family is as famous as the Yu family and the Fong family in Wangka City, but as you know, my eldest son, Yu Hui, is going to marry the genius second miss of the Fong family at the beginning of next month. Haha, when the Fong and Yu families join forces, do you think you'll be our match? Let's see if I'm your match or not." Family Head Zhu said coldly. "You." Family Head Yu smiled gloomily, and his eyes glinted coldly. "Don't forget that the bloodshed vermilion fruit can't be eaten for more than 10 days. Think about how many days it's been since your family had the bloodshed vermilion fruit. It's been 7 or 8 days. Your family doesn't even have a doctor who knows how to use this cinnabar fruit, so why insist on keeping it? It's useless. If it's useless, I'd rather throw it away like trash than let you, Badian, take it for free." "You." Family Head Yu laughed instead of being angry. Good. A strong murderous intent flashed in his eyes, and he did not speak for a long time. No one knew what he was thinking. At this time, the fat man named Tai Zhu had already chased 8 opponents off the stage. At this moment, he was fighting fiercely with a woman in a butterfly dress. She had a graceful figure and her moves were also very agile and swift. From the looks of it, he was also a speed ability user. "This big guy is so strong." Qi Xianxian was worried about the young lady on the stage. "That young lady looks so slim. Can she beat him? You will lose within 3 moves." Just as Qiao Mu finished speaking, that stout man had already grabbed hold of the butterfly-clothed woman. He laughed so hard that all the fat on his body jiggled, and he raised his hand to caress that young lady's face. "Little wifey, a woman as beautiful as you should just stay at home and wait on your husband. Why did you have to risk your life in the championship? Don't touch me." The woman in butterfly clothes was probably disgusted by the fat man and screamed. Yo. The fat man continued to tease. "You're just a woman. If you dare to go up the stage, you should be mentally prepared to be taken liberties with." "Hey, let go of her." The little stoic's icy voice rang out. Qi Xianxian glanced to her side in astonishment, only to discover that the little stoic had disappeared at some point in time. She looked at the stage again and saw the little stoic standing in front of the fat man. Chapter 1742. She stood there, and in front of her stood a brawny man who was as fat as a mountain. The little girl was as thin and weak as a bean sprout. She was pitifully thin. "Are you blind? Can't you see that your opponent is standing in front of you?" the little stoic said coldly. The butterfly-clothed woman struggled in the fat man's hands and took the opportunity to jump away from him. When she passed by Arbor, she nodded gratefully at her and whispered, "Be careful, he's also a speed ability user." Arbor didn't realize that this fat man was also a speed ability user. He was so fat, so how fast could he display? But after the woman's reminder, she became more wary of the fat man. This guy looked as fat as a mountain, but he was actually a speed ability user. It was truly surprising. Ha. The fat man called Iron Pillar was clearly amused by Arbor's small figure. He cast a sidelong glance at her and raised one of his eyebrows. "Little girl, You haven't even grown your hair yet, but you're already imitating others and coming to compete. Now, kneel down and kowtow to me. Obediently jump down, and I can spare your life. Hee! Ha ha! Chuckles rang out from the audience. They had already clearly seen Xiao Mu's petite figure. Although they also recognized that Aber was the Dark Horse Team Lychee's captain, so what? A team competition and a group competition weren't on the same level. Previously, Team Lychee only defeated Team Lion with the help of the other 3 members. To put it bluntly, their victory was due to their teamwork. But it was different now. Only the stoic captain was standing in front of Iron Pillar. With Iron Pillar's large fist, he could probably beat her to the point of vomiting blood and fainting. Aber was expressionless, and there was a cold and cheerless expression on her adorable little face. She didn't understand why the people below were laughing wildly. Iron Pillar stood in front of her with his hands on his hips. He was like a pile of white fat floating in front of her like waves. Aber suddenly summoned a spirit weapon from her inner world. With a flick of her finger, she injected a wisp of mystic energy and indifferently said, "Explode!" Then, under everyone's shocked expressions, the spiritual weapon suddenly exploded in the arena. The sound of the explosion had obviously affected the team that was in the middle of a regular season match. The 2 teams hurriedly found a place to hide, no longer caring about continuing the match. Fatty Iron Pillar's shocked expression was still fixed on his face, and his whole body fell backwards. It wasn't until a loud bang was heard, and everyone watched as he smashed into the arena, blood splattering all over the ground, that they suddenly realized. The little stoic threw out a spirit weapon as soon as they met, exploding Tai Zhu to death. What kind of joke was this? If a spirit artifact exploded at such a close distance, it would be strange if he could survive. Didn't you see that the 2 teams below were so nervous that they hurriedly retreated? The stoic face expressionlessly stood on the stage and turned to look at the staff members who stood foolishly in front of the crystal screen with stupefied expressions. Aren't you going to announce the results? This lady. Team Lychee's captain Aber said calmly. Team Lychee's captain, Aber, wins. Iron Pillar of the Yu family wins 9 matches. Family Head Yu abruptly stood up from the VIP seats, his eyes wide as he stared fixedly at Aber. Beside him, Family Head Zhu couldn't help but laugh. See, didn't I say we would see who would have the last laugh? Chapter 1743. Yubation's eyes widened as he stared at Aber in disbelief. He shook his head and said, "That's impossible. That's impossible." His Iron Pillar was killed by a little girl's self-detonation of a spiritual weapon? Why? Yubation's eyes were almost filled with blood. He was very angry, but the Zhu clan's patriarch didn't let him off. He even mocked him with a faint smile. Didn't Patriarch you say that your Tai Zhu is fully deserving of being the champion this time? Look, the arena champion is lying on the ground like a dead pig. Shut up. Yubatian shouted angrily. Then, he pointed at Aber and said sternly, "Where are the staff of the underground arena? Aren't you going to say something? Referee, that's against the rules. Who would so crudely and unscrupulously throw out a spirit tool and then self-destruct? Even a tycoon wouldn't do that." Ahahaha. Jojo won. Qi Xianxian, who was worried about Jojo, stood up and laughed maniacally as if she had been injected with chicken blood. You see, Jojo effortlessly killed that lump of fat meat. Look at the eyes of the people around them. TSK, TSK, TSK. Not everyone has the ability to self-detonate a spiritual weapon. In fact, a spiritual weapon was expensive. In Shuntian Prefecture's Wenka City, it was considered a luxury item. Wasn't it a waste to use such a luxury item to self-detonate? Aber didn't think so. She was going to fight for points. If she didn't take a shortcut, she would be played to death by the instructors. Only an idiot would fight with others one by one. If she saw someone she liked, she would kick them off the stage. If she didn't like them, she would self-detonate. Wasn't that better? The staff came back to their senses and quickly added Aba's name to the list of arena champions. Of course, Auber hung the plaque with the arena champion on her waist. She didn't want to stupidly hang the plaque on her chest like a fool. For a moment, quite a number of people were shocked by her thunderous methods. For a short period of time, there was a gap in the number of challengers. Auber stood idly on the main stage, leaning lazily on the side, waiting for someone to come to him. However, Patriarch Yu refused to comply. He questioned several staff members sternly, but the answers he received were very uniform. The tournament didn't prohibit the use of all kinds of support. In other words, if he wanted to explode his spirit tools like a nouveau riche, he couldn't do anything about it, right? Fortunately, when they first built this underground arena, they knew that once a fight broke out, it would definitely affect the innocent. Thus, they had already reinforced several defenses above the arena. Therefore, when the spirit energy exploded on the iron pillar, it didn't affect anyone else. Unable to seek justice, Family Head Yu could only fling his sleeves angrily and sit back down with a face full of hatred. He had no idea where this little girl came from. He had never seen her in Onka City before. Could it be that he was a young child from some hidden family who had come out to train? As Family Head Yu pondered this, he looked up again and gazed deeply at Xiao Mu. At this moment, Instructor Zhou Danjin, who was sitting in the corner, was so regretful that his intestines almost turned green. However, he still couldn't help but ask, "Instructor Wei Wei, is she breaking the rules? She even self-detonated her spirit tool. Didn't it say in the letter that you can use spirit tools as support?" Instructor Wei Wei said without even looking up. Chapter 1744. Holy shit, how could a spirit weapon be used like that? Zhou Danjin couldn't help but complain softly, "This is too much of a scam." Isn't that so? A square-faced instructor couldn't help but complain, "If this little girl uses her spirit weapon to self-destruct in every match to repel her opponents, then she can really defend until the end and become the final champion." The other two instructors looked at each other in dismay. That can't be. If she self-destructed her spirit weapon in every match, then how many spirit weapons would she have to self-destruct to defend until the end? Moreover, if this little girl self-destructed her spirit weapon in every match, would the defensive barrier on the second floor of the arena be able to last until the end? Thinking about it, it didn't seem very likely. Zhou Danjin pursed his lips and said, "Since that's the case, then there's nothing more to say. Let's just say that her results are valid this time." Rich students were indeed different. They had clearly given so many restrictions, but it was impossible to guard against them, causing her to use such a crooked move. Count. Auber naturally didn't know that the instructors were privately discussing this. However, if she knew that instructor Zhou Danjin counted her results as valid, she would definitely snort in disdain. She had Qi Xianxian take out the authentic letters that the instructors had given her and explain to them word by word. The rule about not being able to use divine weapons and being able to use spirit weapons was written by the instructors themselves. Why would they care how she uses this spirit weapon? If she uses it to chop people or self-destruct it, they couldn't care less. Auber casually patted the arena champion card hanging on her waist. After a quarter of an hour, she turned to the staff in front of the crystal screen and asked impatiently, "Is there anyone else who wants to challenge me?" The place she was standing on was about to grow mushrooms, yet no one had come up to challenge her. Was it because she was too easy to talk to? Manager Tang couldn't help but twitch his mouth as he hurriedly comforted the little girl's emotions. "It's probably because Miss Chow is too powerful. You have to give everyone some time to calm down." As he spoke, he coughed and said, "If no one comes up to challenge Miss Chow in an hour, then today's arena champion will undoubtedly be Miss Chow." As soon as he finished speaking, an expanse of clamorous noise couldn't help but arise in the surroundings, and it was mixed with many unconvinced questions. However, there was no more noise. That was the rule. If no one dared to challenge Auber in the next hour, Auber would become the champion of the day. A few unconvinced youngsters were eager to give it a try, using their eyes to signal others to go first. But in the end, no one dared to go up and give it a try. Everyone felt their teeth ache as they watched the little stoic strolling around the small arena on the second floor. Why did he feel like he was being cheated? "I'll do it," Suddenly, a seemingly elegant young master in white stood up and floated to the small arena on the second floor like a pure white cloud. When he landed on the ground, the white-robed young master's white robes fluttered in the wind. His robes fluttered slightly as he descended from the sky, giving off an indescribable sense of beauty. Arbor was expressionless. Thunderous applause rang out from the audience. All right. All right. This is the Fong family's genius third young master, right? I didn't expect third young master Fong to also participate in this competition. Oh my god, if I knew third young master Fong would also be participating, then I would have bet on him winning. How laughable. Isn't that third young master Fong from a prestigious patrician family? Why did he also participate in the Underground Fighting Arenas Championship? Chapter 1745. Haven't you all thought of this reason? Moreover, who was he putting on a show for when he appeared in such a pretentious manner? Didn't he see that the little girl was very dismissive of him? He hovered in the air like a bird and slowly descended. When he landed, he even opened his folding fan and posed very nicely. The little girl rolled her eyes at him. Everyone felt that it was a bit comical when they saw it. Third young master Fong boasted of his elegance, but the little girl didn't even look him in the eye. From Arbor's point of view, this person's appearance really didn't stand out. He was the type of person that Miss Chow couldn't remember even if she looked at him twice. Of course, third young master Fong was actually quite good-looking, but Miss Chow was the type of person who wouldn't even take a second look at a handsome man like Duan Yu, let alone this third young master Fong. They didn't know what he was showing off for. He didn't fly very nicely and posed like a freaking idiot. Although they were far away, Qi Xianxian, Duanmu Qing, and the others all had keen eyesight. They could read the little girl's intentions from observing her expression and paying attention to her gaze. It was quite funny when they thought about it. This third young master Fong was probably going on stage to amuse himself. Little miss, please point. Before third young master Fong could say the word teach, the little girl's figure flashed and suddenly closed in on him. She closed the distance of 3 meters in the blink of an eye. The little girl didn't allow for an explanation and slapped a palm print formed by water spirit directly at third young master Fong's chest. Third young master shouted, "Good timing," but before he could finish speaking, he was already hit by the water spirit palm print. He somersaulted in the air and was blown away by the waves. Everyone, Arbor scuttled forward and swung a small iron fist at third young master Fong's head. Thump, thump, thump. Third young master Fong only felt like his head was smashed by a small hammer 3 times in a row, causing him to feel dizzy and fall to the ground with a thud. Get down. Arbor scolded softly. He kicked third young master's lower back. The third young master let out a blood-curdling scream as he rushed towards the edge of the stage. He dangled dangerously on the stage's railing, with half of his body dangling. If not for his 2 legs supporting him on the ground, he would have fallen down by now. Everyone was speechless again. Why did they have a feeling of speechlessness? Was it really good for the little girl to be so cruel? Get down. Arbor kicked third young master's lower back again. No, don't kick. A man's waist. F*CK. It was obvious that this wretched lass was blind. Which budding girl didn't have a spring in her heart? Seeing such an elegant and handsome young master appear in front of her, she couldn't help but be startled. Not only did she not blush, she even raised her fists and beat him to death. Can you really get married like this? You're as barbaric as a man. Are you sure you can find a husband? Before third young master Fong vomited blood, he hurriedly summoned his mystic beast, a strong yellow horse with tiger spots. It looked a bit strange. When it galloped, its speed was very fast. But when it came to its attack power, it wasn't that strong. The yellow horse leaped slightly and carried third young master Fong. Cough, cough, cough. Third young master Fong panted slightly on the horse. He lowered his head and saw that there was a small footprint printed on the front and back of his white shirt. Chapter 1746. Third young master Fong couldn't help but be flustered and exasperated. You little lady, how could you attack without any explanation? You. Third young Master Fong had probably never seen a little lady who would beat someone to death without saying anything. His handsome face flushed red instantly. He truly had never suffered such a huge loss before. He was chased and beaten by a little lady in front of everyone, and he practically didn't have the strength to retaliate. Arbor frowned slightly. Why wasn't this person going down? With a flick of her finger, a scimitar-like spirit weapon appeared in her hand. Third young Master Fong jumped in fright and galloped 2 steps back on his yellow horse. He was already very close to the edge of the arena on the 2nd floor. You, don't mess around. What do you want to do? Let me tell you, people like you who self-destruct by abusing spirit weapons are. He watched as Arbor channeled a wisp of mystic energy into the spirit weapon and was about to throw it in his direction. Third young Master Fong's eyes dimmed, and he abruptly reached out to pat his yellow horse's head. 1 man and 1 horse galloped into the air. Everyone immediately cheered loudly. So third young Master Fong's extremely ordinary-looking horse actually has wings? At this time, that yellow horse with tiger spots had already flapped its wings and flew up, hovering high above Arbor's head. Arbor's gaze darkened, and her face was displeased. She raised her hands slightly, and a cold glint flitted past her eyes. A move of ice descended, and a violent vortex of spirit energy mixed with converging hailstones swept toward third young Master Fong, whose expression changed drastically. He hastily pressed his yellow horse's head to land on the ground, but before he could think of a way to escape this predicament, the little stoic's Frost Wind Slash followed closely behind. Frost Wind Slash was a move that she comprehended on her own from Qing Wan's moves. When this Frost Wind Slash descended, it directly cut a deep gash in the ground of the entire arena. Broken stones rolled down from the ring, seriously affecting the 2 teams that were competing on the 1st floor. The unlucky teams were hastily pulled by their respective captains and hastily ran to the sides. Get down. Following the little stoic's indifferent voice, third young Master Fong only felt the pressure of that Frost Wind Slash, and his entire person fell down from the edge of the stage. Ah! Third young Master Fong let out a miserable scream. The yellow horse seemed to have been frightened by the little girl's Frost Wind Slash. It even forgot to spread its wings. 1 man and 1 beast miserably fell to the ground, unable to get up for a long time. When Arbor looked up, the staff member who was stunned in front of the crystal screen immediately understood and hurriedly said, "Miss Chow wins this round." At this moment, those who had said that Miss Chow didn't win with her own ability all shut their mouths. This was the first time the lady had self-detonated her spiritual artifact. She probably didn't think much of her opponent. She probably couldn't be bothered to make a move against such a weakling. An hour later, because no one else dared to challenge Arbor, Arbor became the youngest champion of the day. When she came down from the 2nd floor of the ring, Arbor was still expressionless. Everyone wanted to see joy and excitement on her face, but they were disappointed. "Jojo." Qi Xianxian welcomed her with a face full of smiles and hooked her arm. "I knew you would definitely win." Arbor nodded. "Later, I'll have Manager Tang calculate how many points we earned." Chapter 1747. Ever since they entered this underground battle arena, they had become anxious. Every now and then, they would want to know how many points their team had. Arbor was still skeptical about gathering enough points to summon a tutor. Based on the character of the tutors from the top academies, who knew if they would give them more small missions when they had enough points. Arbor had just been pulled to a seat by Qi Xianxian when he heard a dong sound from the back door of the battle arena. It was as if someone had forcefully slammed it open. A group of people carried a wooden stretcher and clustered around a middle-aged man. They moved toward Arbor and the others. Everyone curiously glanced at the group of people. When they saw the middle-aged man's appearance, they shut their mouths tightly and didn't say anything else. "Family head, it's her. She's the one who attacked young master. Capture Ko Hongwen first." The middle-aged family head coldly shouted. Immediately, 4 or 5 people revealed black ropes in their hands. Without any explanation, they went toward the little fatty, Ko Hongwen. Of course, little fatty wouldn't just sit there and wait for his death. However, he had only just started to move. But when he moved, a few fierce-looking burly men pounced over. They reached out to grab his arms and put ropes around his hands. Arbor really didn't like the way these people acted. They would always come over and attack others for no reason. As the aristocratic families of the Middle Realm, their arrogant and ugly faces had all been inadvertently revealed. Scram! Arbor didn't need to do anything. Duanmu Qing's face darkened. He flicked his sleeves and threw away the ropes that bound the little fatty. Duanmu Qing looked coldly at the middle-aged leader and said coldly, "Steward Tang, someone is causing trouble in your arena. Don't you need to do something about it?" Steward Tang naturally didn't dare to be negligent. Before his young master left, he had instructed him to take good care of Miss Chow. These people didn't have eyes. If they offended Miss Chow and made her unhappy, his young master might think that he didn't do his job well. Steward Tang hurriedly waved his hand with a solemn expression. "Let the arena security personnel come forward and stop the middle-aged man's group." Of course, Steward Tang recognized this middle-aged man. Everyone in Wenka City knew the name of the Ko family's patriarch. Ko family head. Steward Tang cupped his hands towards Ko Dihai, his attitude still quite amiable. "These people are friends of my master. May I know why Patriarch Ko is looking for trouble with them?" Ko Dihai's expression changed slightly as he looked at Steward Tang with a complicated expression. Of course, he knew that Steward Tang was one of the main people in charge of the underground fighting arena. If he accidentally offended him, it would be quite troublesome. But now, he had no choice but to offend him. His precious son had been turned into a pig's head and face that had not gone down even after a day and night. Instead, it had swelled up even more. Pus would flow out from under his skin if he touched him lightly. Looking at his son lying there crying and screaming, as a father, his heart was tormented. No matter what, he had to capture this little traitor, Ko Hongwen, and deal with him in private. How dare he be so ruthless to his Zhen? He, Ko Hongwen, had only himself to blame for everything that had happened to him. He glared coldly at Ko Hongwen with hazy eyes. "Little bastard, how dare you be so ruthless to Master's younger brother? What are you still standing there for? Detain them. Detain everyone." Chapter 1748. Steward Tang's expression darkened. He ordered the arena guards to step forward and separate the people the Ko family had brought. Ko Dihai looked at Steward Tang angrily and said, "Steward Tang, you and I have lived in peace in Anka City for so many years, and we see each other all the time. I don't want to make things difficult for you. As long as you let me take these people away, the Ko family will continue to support your underground arena's competitions in the future." Steward Tang shook his head. No. What a joke. The young master had personally asked him to take care of this lady. How could he let Ko Dihai deal with her? He secretly gave the servant behind him a look. The servant immediately understood and turned to look for young Master Ding. "Tang Cheng." Ko Dihai's expression turned cold. He forced the words out of his gritted teeth. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. As soon as he finished speaking, a heavy pressure surged towards everyone. Arbor and the others immediately realized that the Ko family's patriarch, Ko Dihai, was a spiritual master who had broken through to level 8. With his talent, this was already the limit. That was why the Ko family had been staying in Anka City for so many years. They were not particularly top-notch aristocratic families like the Yu family, but they were not very poor either. At least, they had some reputation in Anka City. When the Ko family's patriarch walked out, people would give him some face. Therefore, he felt a little embarrassed when Tang Cheng rejected him in front of everyone. Arbor looked up and glanced at him without saying anything. Since Steward Tang was so righteous to take on this matter for them, then it was none of her business. "Tang Cheng, move aside," Ko Dihai shouted angrily, attracting the attention of many people in the arena. "Patriarch Ko, Miss Chow and her friends are our arena's honored guests and the young master's friends. Please forgive them. I forgive your mother. The Ko family's patriarch cursed in his heart. He pointed at Arbor and said angrily, "This damned girl, you're asking me to forgive you after what you did to my son? Move aside, this has nothing to do with you." Ko Dihai really did not want to make things difficult for Qian Luo's underground arena. After all, those who could open an underground fighting arena in Anka City were all people with some background. Rather than saying that Ko Dihai did not want to offend young Master Ding, it was better to say that he did not want to offend his background. Boom! Ko Dihai launched a probing spiritual attack straight at Arbor and the others. Halfway through, a burst of spiritual energy erupted from Tang Cheng's body and blocked the Ko family head. Ko family head. Tang Cheng's face also became very ugly. Today, if you fight in our Qian Luo's underground battle arena, then it's clear that you want to be our enemy. Am I right? Tang Cheng. Ko Dihai glared angrily and clenched his fists tightly. I don't want to make things difficult for your arena. Get out of my way. That's impossible. Steward Tang assumed a battle stance. The guards of the battle arena swarmed out from all directions and surrounded Ko Dihai and his group. It was obvious that their numbers were more than twice the number of people that Ko Dihai had brought. Ko Dihai was immediately put on the spot. He gritted his teeth for a long time before he suddenly swung his sleeves and said angrily, "Fine. I won't make things difficult for these juniors. However, this damned girl must cure my Zhen." Arbor looked at the Ko family head expressionlessly and did not say anything. He wanted to see how the Ko family head would continue his act. You're asking for treatment with such a bad attitude. Serves you right for not being able to get treatment. Chapter 1749. Qi Xian spat at Ko Dihai. I don't even know what you're talking about. You're like a mad dog, going around biting people as soon as you come in. It's really scary. As she spoke, she even pretended to be afraid and patted her chest twice to show her fear. Family head Do was so angry that he was about to ascend to the heavens. He raised a finger and pointed at her. You've been talking for a long time, but you still haven't said anything. In fact, Ko Dihai wasn't completely sure that the poison in his son's body was from Arbor. Who are you? Arbor bluntly asked. Family head Do was so angry that his nostrils flared as he huffed and puffed. What was more infuriating than messing around for a long time? But the other party didn't even know who you were. Tang Cheng couldn't help but twitch her mouth. This is family head Do. The young master who had a conflict with this little brother in your team is family head Do's son. Oh, this was a classic case of hitting the young and the old coming. Arbor didn't want to waste any more words with Ko Dihai. She coldly looked at him, her eyes filled with ridicule. Bringing a group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals, he broke into the underground fighting arena and wanted to capture her, Ko Hongwen, and the others. Wasn't this person's thinking a bit too idealistic? Ko Dihai naturally saw the mockery in her eyes. His heart was filled with anger, and his old eyes immediately turned cold. You? Before Ko Dihai could finish his sentence, he found that his body had been sent flying in a strange manner. What was going on? When his head hit the seat heavily, a few people who were watching the competition jumped up in fright. Ko Dihai then found that he had been sent flying by a huge force. The source of this huge force was the little fat squirrel. It silently retracted its fat white tail and jumped into Arbor's arms. Arbor looked down and suddenly reached out to poke the fat squirrel's head. Chochio didn't know when it had gained another little tail. This was really strange. Now, the fat squirrel had two tiny tails wagging behind its butt. It didn't look too strange. The other people in the contestant area sucked in a breath of cold air. At first, they thought that Arbor's lychee team hadn't brought out a useful mystical beast for so many hours because their family background wasn't too good. But now, someone else had a beast that was comparable to a small pet. It was fine if it didn't show its might, but once it showed its might, it could send an 8th-level spiritual master flying out of the sky without hesitation. This was simply incomprehensible. Perhaps their reaction arc was too slow. They felt that the scene just now was as if their eyes were playing tricks on them. That fat squirrel was only slightly bigger than a palm, so how could it have so much energy? What happened? Young Master Ding, who had heard the news, walked over with a gentle expression. However, when he looked at Ko Di, there was a trace of coldness that could not be easily detected. Ko Di was stunned. He turned around and glanced at young Master Ding. Immediately, he was speechless. Young Master Ding did not come alone. He had brought 300 guards with him and appeared in front of everyone in such a grand manner. When Ko Di saw this, his eyelids twitched violently. His face was a little embarrassed. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but the situation was stronger than him. He had to take a step back first. After a long while, Housemaster Ko flicked his sleeve and said angrily, "Let's go." Ding Yun's voice instantly turned cold. "Stop them." Chapter 1750. Many guards behind young Master Ding swarmed forward and surrounded Ko Di and the others. Ko Di's expression suddenly changed. He turned and glared at young Master Ding. "Young Master, what do you want?" Young Master Ding sneered. "You are the Ko family head, right? Do you think that our Qian Luo underground arena is a place where anyone can come and go as they please? You want to catch someone, but you brought a group of people and barged in without saying a word. Now you want to leave, but you want to leave without saying a word? What is Qian Luo underground arena in your eyes?" Ko Di held back his anger and said kindly, "Young Master, I acted without thinking, please forgive me. But today's matter is not targeted at Qian Luo underground arena. It's this young lady. This young lady is this young master's friend. Qian Luo underground arena has a reason to protect them." Ding Yun said lightly. "Ko family head, as for you, when you attacked earlier, you destroyed some of the facilities in our underground fighting arena. Shouldn't you compensate us properly?" Ko Di's face turned red when he heard this. He pointed at Ding Yun and said in a trembling voice, You. These people were simply too much." His son was watching the competition in the arena, but he was poisoned by an unknown poison and ran home screaming. He had brought people here to seek justice for his son. Was that wrong? Even if this justice could not be obtained now, he also hoped that the person who poisoned his son would remove the poison. Was this also wrong? But young Master Ko did not know that Miss Chow had always been amenable to coaxing but not coercion. "If you're here, apologize to her properly and say a few soft words. Maybe she'll give you the antidote." After all, it was not a big deal. But now, young Master Ko rushed in and wanted to catch someone. Not to mention that Arbor did not have a good temper. Even if he had a good temper, he would not be able to stand it. Let this Gu Hongzhen have a fat wintermelon head and enjoy 15 days. Who told him to mock others as fat as a pig's head? Why not let him experience what it means to be as fat as a pig's head? Arbor did not want to talk to Ko Di anymore. After sitting down, he continued to watch the match. Ko Di's face was gloomy. He turned his head and looked at the little fatty who was sitting at the side and watching silently with cold eyes. "Ko Hongwen." Ko Di sneered and said, "Today's matter has developed to this extent, it must be your masterpiece. Do you dare to say that this has nothing to do with you?" Little fatty could not help but say, "It's Xie Hongzhen who is slandering me." When he thought of this, his face filled with anger. He wrongly accused me, saying that I stole the clan's spiritual medicine. How could the Ko family head not know about this? Ko Hongwen said angrily, "The little tricks that Ko Hongwen has done behind my back, the patriarch should be fully aware of them. He caused me to be expelled from Dayo Academy. This is all his work. I've been in the academy for more than 2 years. How could Dayao Academy not know what I am? But after he caused me to leave Dayo Academy, he played all kinds of tricks behind my back, causing all the academies in Anka City to avoid me like the plague. Humph, such a person dares to walk in front of me and insult my friend so shamelessly? He only has himself to blame." Ko Di was furious. He raised his hand and was about to attack when young Master Ding signaled him with his eyes. Chapter 1751. Several guards drew their swords and pointed them at the Ko family head's chest and back. As long as he dared to move, the guards' swords would not let him go. Ko Di saw that the situation was beyond his control, so he had no choice but to flick his sleeves angrily and say to Arbor and the others, "You win. Today, the people of Chen Luo's underground fighting arena will protect you. But don't forget, once you leave this underground fighting arena, I'll see who can protect you." Arbor glanced at him, then looked up at young Master Ding. She said expressionlessly, "This person is talking nonsense in your underground fighting arena, and he doesn't care about you at all. How can you let him go out like this?" Ko Di was stunned when he heard this, and his face instantly stiffened. His gaze towards Xiao Mu was simply as if he could swallow her whole. This damned girl instigated young Master Ding in front of the person involved. Won't she be beaten to death? Young Master Ding smiled gently. "Xiao Xiao, if you don't want him to live, then I'll get someone to kill him. He's the Ko family head. Do you dare to do that? Aren't you afraid that your fighting arena will be destroyed?" Young Master Ding couldn't help but sneer. "It's just a small Ko family. If I kill him, he won't be able to find anyone to reason with." Arbor said, "Oh," and didn't say anything else. Young Master Ding raised his eyebrows. "Do you want me to do it?" Arbor didn't say anything. She wouldn't be so stupid to ask him to kill someone. If he asked Ding how to take action now, wouldn't he owe Ding Hao a favor? What a joke. Was Arbor's favor so easily given? He was just a small Ko family head. If she didn't want him to live, she could do it herself. There was no need for others to do it. Young Master Ding saw that she didn't say anything and couldn't help but sigh. "Ah. Jojo still doesn't trust me." Arbor snorted. Trust? Was the word trust meant for him? How could she trust a wastrel? Young Master Ding blinked at her. "Actually, if we spend more time together, you'll know that I'm actually a good person." Arbor chuckled and didn't say anything else. He just waved his little hand impatiently, indicating that he shouldn't disturb her from watching the game. Although this competition was most likely boring and she only wanted to sleep after watching it, Lin Yiqian still felt like sleeping. However, out of the 10 matches, there were still 1 or 2 exciting fights. As a result, Arbor felt that the group of people beside him was a bit of an eyesore. He wanted to chase them away as soon as possible. When Ko Di saw that they only cared about themselves and completely ignored him, he couldn't help but feel angry and angry. Today, he originally wanted to capture Arbor and the others. Even if he had to settle for the second best, he wanted her to hand over the antidote. But now, not only had he failed to accomplish a single thing, he had even suffered a bellyful of anger for no reason at all. This made Ko Di extremely furious. "Young Master." At this time, Tang Chang walked to young Master Ding's side and respectfully handed him a list. Young Master Ding shook the list and slowly read it out. "Ko family head, your disciples destroyed 2 rows of seats in our underground fighting arena. They also made a section of the ground full of potholes. It's very ugly. This young master wants to find someone to fix it, and that will cost spirit coins." According to the list, the damaged items are worth 8,456 spirit coins. This young master reluctantly rounded up the remainder. "You can give me 8,000 spirit coins." Chapter 1752. The Ko family head's expression was quite interesting to see. His face was alternating between green, white, and black. His eyes were glaring at young Master Ding as if they were about to shoot out flames. "What? Do you have any objections to this compensation?" Young Master Ding smiled and clapped his hands. "Tang Cheng, your subordinate is here." Steward Tang lowered his head and quickly walked forward. Suddenly, he shook his outer robe and tore off his shirt. Not only did he reveal all the muscles on his body, but there was also a burst of strong spiritual energy from his body. Everyone could feel the power of a level 9 spirit master. Everyone couldn't help but be stunned. This Chen Luo underground battle arena really had a lot of resources. Even a seemingly unknown steward had the cultivation of a level 9 spirit master. No wonder no one dared to cause trouble at the Qian Luo underground battle arena for so long. Everyone's respect for the Qian Luo underground battle arena was not without reason. Everyone silently shut their mouths and waited for the situation to develop. The Ko family's patriarch's face was extremely ugly. After staring blankly for a long time, he suddenly took out a heavy bag of spirit coins from his inner world and placed it heavily on a nearby stool before turning to the group of Ko family disciples and saying, "Let's go." Qi Xianxian curled her lips and secretly sighed in pity. The Ko family's head had come all the way here just to give young Master Ding 8,000 spirit coins in the underground fighting arena. Abba glanced at the Ko family head and then shifted her gaze to the arena. Young Master Ding looked at her helplessly and whispered to Steward Tang. Then, he led a group of people and left. Xiao Mu turned her head in astonishment and looked in the direction that young Sir Ding had left in. "What's wrong?" Qi Xianxian asked. Duanmu Qing couldn't help but whisper, "This young master is very protective of Jojo." Ding Yun just ordered Steward Tang to lead people to deal with the Ko family head. Although his voice wasn't loud, with Abba and Duanmu Qing's hearing, they naturally heard it. Abba heard this and couldn't help but snort. With a proud expression, she said, "Who needs his help?" Qi Xianxian couldn't help but laugh. "Jojo, why do you dislike that young master so much?" Although she did not have much contact with Ding Yun, judging from his appearance, this young Master Ding still looked like a dog, and his temperament seemed to be quite docile. It was just that if Jojo didn't like someone, they would more or less have a grudge against her. He guessed that Child Ding had offended Jojo before. Abba didn't say anything. After a while he said crisply, "Even if he helped us drive away Cody High, I still won't be lenient when it comes to making money." What he meant was that she had won 28 spirit coins by betting on him. After she had won the bet, he couldn't give her a single cent less. Qi Xianxian immediately nodded, "Of course." But at that time, would young Master Ding lose so badly that he would cry? At most, I'll give him 200 spirit coins as a tip. Miss Chow's stingy nature immediately surfaced when she said this. Little Fatty couldn't help but twitch his mouth, but he still shook his head honestly and said, "Since you're giving it to me, we don't need to give it to you." Duanmu Qing was speechless. What kind of teammates did he end up with? As they spoke, a staff member in front of the crystal screen reported the name of Team Longan. Mata and the others immediately rushed onto the field and fought against Team Frog, who had lost to Team Ox. Team Frog versus Team Longan. The atmosphere in the field was once again ignited. Chapter 1753. Will Dao Wuji be alright? The Peony Fairy couldn't help but mutter. The Ginkgo Fairy, who had a love-struck look on her face as she stared at the handsome man, unconsciously replied, "He looks so ordinary. Whether he dies or not has nothing to do with us. Big sister, why do you care about him?" The Peony Fairy was speechless. After all, she had imprisoned Dao Wuji for so long, so she was just saying that casually. The Luo brothers glanced at each other. Dao Wuji wasn't bad-looking, was he? It was just that in front of their boss and Yuan Shichen, he was a little lacking. But they shouldn't let him die just because he was average-looking. Yuan Shichen was a little curious. What kind of mystic beast do you think Dao Wuji encountered? Why hasn't he come out for so long? Little Tai Sui snorted. It wouldn't be surprising if a dilly-dallying coward died in the Tower of Punishment. When little Tai Sui recalled how this man had repeatedly paced back and forth in front of the doors, it couldn't help but say, "Damned sissy." Everyone, did Dao Wuji look like a sissy? Little Tai Sui, on the other hand, was as pretty as a little girl with red lips and white teeth. Dao Wuji looked like a tough guy, but little Tai Sui kept calling him a D**************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** He's just a sissy. Little Tai Sui explained, he's indecisive and sissy. He didn't like this guy at all. Yuan Shichen smiled. Little Tai Sui, you're quite good at judging people. Little Tai Sui's face darkened. He turned around and said angrily to Yuan Shichen, Don't talk to me like I'm a kid. You have to respect me. Everyone was silent for a moment, selectively ignoring his words. As they spoke, they entered the 17th floor. As soon as they entered, they discovered that their surroundings were plunged into darkness. Or rather, it wasn't just the surroundings that were plunged into darkness. Above their heads, below their feet, and in front of their eyes, everything was a dazzling starry sky. The stars were like little diamonds embedded in the night sky, dazzling and gorgeous. Emolienne was slightly taken aback. She felt as if she was standing on a star, and all she could see was a vast expanse of starry sky. It was boundless, and she couldn't see the end of it. What was the meaning of this layer? Such a vast and boundless starry sky was displayed in front of him. What was he supposed to explore? Prince Mo was at a loss for a moment. He stared blankly at the boundless starry sky and slowly walked forward. He only felt that the stars in front of him were twinkling and changing unpredictably. For a moment, they were arranged into a picture, but in the next second, they changed into another shape. In the depths of the sea of stars, he seemed to be able to see a slender figure running ahead while waving her small hands and her skirt fluttering in the wind. With a flash of his body, he chased after him. However, that figure was so vague that it was like a bubble that was embedded in the sea of stars. There was no way he could catch up to it. He had no choice but to run forward. The more he chased her, the more he felt that she was getting further and further away from him. The shadow in the depths of the sea of stars seemed to be forever out of reach. Inexplicably, he became irritated in his heart. At the same time, in a small room on the 16th floor, a certain someone, who was being hung upside down on the flower branch's nourishment, was shouting at the top of his lungs, "Hey! Is there anyone here? Gods! Please stop fooling around, okay?" Chapter 1754. He felt that if this went on, his life force would be gradually absorbed by the morning glory. Soon, he would end up like the people around him. His life force would be sucked dry by the morning glory. How could this happen? He, Dao Wuji, was not someone who would sit around and wait for death. In order to survive, he might have to give it his all. He used his divine sense, and an item suddenly jumped out of his inner world. This was the celestial prime saint power pearl that he used to save his life. He had bought it at a sky-high price. Every time he thought about it, he felt his heart ache. Unfortunately, he had already spent all his money. No matter how much he felt, it was useless. Moreover, if this money could save his life, it would be worth it. However, when the Saint Power Pearl exploded, it would not distinguish between friend and foe. In his current situation, he could not escape. If he threw the Saint Power Pearl, it would inevitably affect him. However, he no longer had a choice. He had reached the point where he had to risk his life. The winner would live, and the loser would die. Dao Wuji's heart skipped a beat. He raised his hand with difficulty and poured all the saint power he could gather into this high-level Saint Power Pearl. Soon, a loud explosion came from this small room. However, Emolienne and the others could not hear it. They were now trapped in the starry sky and could not help but run into the depths of the starry sky. The section break of Zi Yunqi's house. ******, 20 days later. In Qian Luo's underground arena, there were roars that were comparable to wild beasts. The battle for points had reached its climax. The first place on the crystal screen was Team Nyobi. This team had not met any opponents along the way. They had participated in the challenge tournament earlier and had obtained some points. Hence, Team Nyobi, who was in first place, had accumulated 906 points. As for Team Lychee from Arbor's family, they had accumulated 898 points and were in second place. Among these 898 points, there were 720 points from Arbor's victory in the challenge tournament. Arbor had fought a total of 38 matches in 20 days since he started participating in the challenge tournament, breaking the record of the previous challenge tournament. Arbor had been in the ring since the first day of the match and had never left the ring. As for Team Longan, because they did not participate in the main tournament, even if they worked hard every day, they only had 306 points and had not entered the top 50. A bunch of pitiful kids. They had to fight more than a dozen matches every day. They were dog-tired every day, and their points were so low. Arbor saw that they were quite pitiful, so he looked for Mata and said, "If we have 1,000 points, we'll give some to you." Mata immediately burst into tears, his face full of joy. They even asked the waitress at the service area about this. When the two ladies learned that Team Lychee from Arbor was going to give some points to Team Longan, they looked at them as if they were fools. It was as if the people from Arbor had done something stupid. Everyone knew how hard it was to earn points in the underground arena. There were actually people who wanted to give away their points. If they were not fools, then what were they? Arbor naturally did not give Mata and the others his points. He only asked them if they could do so and then went back with them. Mata, Hua Tao, and the others had been worried about their points. Now that they saw a glimmer of hope, they were very grateful to Miss Chow. She was their lifesaver. Chapter 1755. The little girl had done them a huge favor. They didn't want to stay in this arena after a month of hard work and earn points to go home. Who knew what kind of punishment the instructors would give if they didn't complete this mission? Arbor's small arena matches were very easy now. Apart from the fierce challengers in the first few days, no one dared to challenge her in the arena these 2 days. There was no other reason. When Miss Chow was in a good mood, she would practice with others for fun. If she was in a bad mood and happened to meet someone she didn't like, she would take out a spirit artifact and drop it for fun. Everyone had carefully calculated for her. A conservative estimate was that Miss Chow had dropped at least 10 spirit artifacts. Every day, Steward Tang of the arena would send people to reinforce the defensive layer of the small arena to prevent innocent people from getting hurt. What else could you say to such a rich person? You couldn't afford to offend her, so you could at least avoid her. Arbor had just sat down in her seat when a person hurried over and bowed to her respectfully. "Miss Chow." "Steward Zhu." Arbor nodded. The middle-aged man named Steward Zhu was the chief steward of the Zhu family, one of the 3 aristocratic families in Anka City. "Miss Chow, the patriarch sent this lowly one to ask if you have time to visit the Zhu family for a follow-up examination after today's matches." Arbor looked at the matches in the arena. The day's matches were almost over, so she nodded and said, "Sure, please wait a moment." "Yes." Steward Zhu was overjoyed. He cupped his hands and quickly retreated to the side, tactfully not disturbing Arbor. Speaking of which, the only son of the Zhu family's patriarch was saved by the little girl before him. Speaking of this, the story went back to 20 days ago. Ubatian had set his eyes on the bloodshed vermilion fruit of the Zhu family. After failing to cheat him of it, he found people to intercept the patriarch and take it by force. The little girl happened to bump into him on the way and saved him in passing. After hearing that the Zhu family's patriarch had a holy medicine but didn't know how to use it, everything happened naturally. Now, everyone in the Zhu family regarded Arbor as their great benefactor who gave them a new lease on life. This was not only because he had saved the Zhu family's patriarch, but also because he had cured the Zhu family's only heir, the illness that young Master Zhu had when he was still in the womb. Although it was a saint-grade spirit fruit with superb effects, if it wasn't for the little girl, no one in the Zhu family would use this bloodshed vermilion fruit. Even if it was forcefully given to young Master Zhu, it might not be effective. But in fact, the Zhu family was too honest. The little girl didn't just conveniently save Patriarch Zhu. It was only because Qiuqiu had coincidentally seen Patriarch Zhu being chased by someone that he had cheered. That person has the aura of the bloodshed vermilion fruit on him. She chased after him to help and, conveniently, saved him. After she obtained the vermilion fruit, the little stoic excused that the bloodshed vermilion fruit wasn't properly maintained and needed to be nurtured for 2 more days before it could be used. Very naturally, he transplanted this holy herb into his own herb garden on Paradise Planet. To help young Master Zhu improve his physique, there was no need to use the bloodshed vermilion fruit at all. It was simply overkill. The outer pulp of this bloodshed vermilion fruit could improve one's physique and prolong one's life. The biggest use of the core inside was to help people comprehend their spirit roots. Normal people probably didn't know about this point. She had only learned about it from Long Chuyun's personal notes. Seeing that the Zhu family had contributed a bloodshed vermilion fruit, the little stoic was very concerned about young Master Zhu's fetus illness. Chapter 1756. Not only did he use sacred water to recuperate his body, he even racked his brains to specially concoct the most suitable pulse-healing pill for him. He even reluctantly gave young Master Zhu 3 taels of spiritual tea and asked someone to brew it for him to recuperate his body and bones. In this way, 20 days later, young Master Zhu had been recuperated to the point where he was lively and energetic. Compared to his usual sickly appearance, he was much better. Although young Master Zhu was still unable to practice martial arts, his body was slowly recuperating. As long as this continued, he would definitely be able to practice martial arts after 3 years. In the past, when his body was weak, even with Xian meridians, he could only sigh at his inadequacy and was unable to accumulate Xian energy. But after recuperating his body, it was different. He could practice whenever he wanted, and slowly, his body would become stronger and stronger. Zhu Su took in a deep breath. When Arba walked in, he saw young Master Zhu leaning against the window with only a thin outer robe draped over his body. "Come here." Under Miss Chow's shout, young Master Zhu obediently climbed down from the window and ran to her side. The 2 servant girls who followed in looked down, and although the corners of their mouths were secretly twitching, they were already used to it. Thinking back to when Miss Chow first came to treat young Master, she even rolled up her sleeves and gave young Master Zhu a beating. What did you want everyone to say? Their young master originally didn't have any will to live, but it was beaten back by this violent Miss Chow. Cough. Although family head Zhu's heart ached when he saw his son being beaten up, he didn't expect the results to be so good after the beating. Family head Zhu had nothing to say. "Jojo, what did you bring for me today?" Young Master Zhu was about the same age as Arba and was born with a baby face. Now that his complexion was getting better, his little face was rosy and it added some cuteness to a young man. When Arba first met him, young Master Zhu was leaning against the window lifelessly, looking at the lake and feeling remorse. He didn't have the slightest bit of manliness. After taking his pulse and giving him a prescription, he responded weakly with just a breath more than a dead person. What kind of explosive temper did Miss Chow have? This great aunt had personally come to treat you for the sake of that stalk of sacred medicine, and you still dare to give her the cold shoulder? One look and you know that face is asking for a beating. Fight. After a round of beating, Zhu Gongzi sobbed and became much more obedient. This naturally weak young master had always been well protected by the Zhu family head since he was a child. When had he ever seen such a violent doctor? When I passed by a mask stall today, I saw 2 very interesting masks, so I bought them. Do you want them? Yes, yes, yes. Young Master Zhu did not step out of the house all year round, so he was curious about everything that happened outside. Not to mention a mask, even if you gave him a piece of dog poop, he would hold it in his hand and admire it for a long time. After Arba finished treating him, he glanced at a certain someone who was playing with a mask with her head lowered. He snorted and said, "Let's go." "Hey, Jojo, don't go yet." Young Master Zhu hurriedly said, "Tomorrow night is the annual Chrysanthemum Festival. Why don't you take me out for a stroll?" Arba turned his head and looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. Young Master Zhu couldn't help but blush. He coughed lightly and said, "That, if you didn't speak up, my father definitely wouldn't have let me out." He had stayed in the house for so many years that he felt like he was going to rot. Chapter 1757. Not to mention anything else, even ordinary people walking around outside had become an extravagant hope for him. How could this not make him depressed and discouraged? Arba patted his head. "Your body is getting better day by day, it's not a problem for you to go out for some fresh air." "Really?" Zhu Gongzi's baby face immediately lit up. "I'll introduce a few friends to you while I'm at it?" "Sure, sure." Zhu Gongzi was overjoyed. He had been ill for so many years, not to mention friends, even relatives rarely visited him. The condition is that you have to take your medicine well tonight and rest early. Yes, yes, I will. Zhu Gongzi nodded his head like a chick pecking at rice. His obedient appearance made the two servant girls beside him cover their mouths and secretly laugh. Arba rather liked this simple youth in front of her. In the past, when she saw his lifeless appearance, she only felt very displeased. There was no other reason. A youth like him should be living under the sun, all right? Why was he pretending to be melancholic for no reason? She hated it just looking at him. All right, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Arba packed her things and walked out the door. I'll come and pick you up tomorrow evening. All right. Zhu Gongzi waved his hand and sent her off with an expectant gaze. When Arba was at the main entrance, she coincidentally bumped into Zhu Family Head, who had hurried back. Zhu Family Head looked a bit travel-worn. He must have taken care of a pile of matters and rushed over because he was concerned about his son's condition when he heard that she was in the residence. Zhu Bin hurried forward to greet her. Little divine doctor. Arba waved her hand. She was never a divine doctor. Her medical skills were only slightly better than ordinary people's. Your son's body has been nursed back to health quite well. He just needs to keep it up. I changed the prescription for him today. The medicine is mainly gentle and nourishing. After taking it well for 3 months, he should be able to recover. In the future, he just needs to consolidate a little. Zhu Family Head was overjoyed and thanked her profusely. Arba continued, tomorrow is a rare chrysanthemum birthday. I want to bring Zhu Gongzi out for some fresh air. This will also help his condition. Now that young Master Zhu's body is starting to get better, it is necessary for him to take a stroll. Zhu Family Head stared blankly for a moment before nodding his head repeatedly in agreement. Then, he personally sent Miss Chow out of the door. Watching Miss Chow get into the carriage and leave, Zhu Family Head smiled. Congratulations, Patriarch. Young Master's illness is getting better and better. In a few more days, he might be able to cultivate. Manager Zhu also said with a face full of joy. Patriarch Zhu nodded. Fortunately, I met the little miracle doctor. Fortunately, the Patriarch trusts this little miracle doctor. If it was someone else, seeing that the little girl was so young, they might not even let her treat the young master's illness. Now that Su-er's illness has been cured, I can finally rest easy. Patriarch Zhu said with relief. When I go to the underworld and see Su-er's mother, I will finally have the face to meet her. The Patriarch is in the prime of his life. In the future, he will have to watch the young master get married and have children. If Madame knew about this, she would definitely be smiling in the underworld. Patriarch Zhu nodded. His expression suddenly turned serious. Anka City hasn't been peaceful recently. Tomorrow, when the little miracle doctor and Sua go out, you must send more people to protect them. Yes, Patriarch. Manager Zhu cupped his hands in salute and naturally agreed. Chapter 1758. The next day, Arba lazily said to everyone after they finished their matches, Tonight, there's a chrysanthemum festival in the city. I plan to bring young Master Zhu there for a stroll. Those who want to come along can come. Ma Ta was the first to raise his hand. I was just about to tell you. I also heard from others that this chrysanthemum festival is very lively. There's even free chrysanthemum wine along the streets to taste. Oh. Then we should go and take a look. Lu Yu, Jiang Shaoxin, and Hua Tao all nodded. For so long, everyone had been cooped up in the underground arena to compete every day. They were almost petrified from all the fighting. It was rare for them to go out and relax. Only fools wouldn't go. Chow Chow, Zhu family's young master. Is he the one that you often go to treat these days? Chow Chow's glorious deed of saving Zhu family's head had long been spread in the city. Basically, everyone knew that Family Head Yu wanted to snatch a sacred medicine from Family Head Zhu. He didn't hesitate to chase after Family Head Zhu and was saved by a little godly doctor in the end. Yes, it's that young Master Zhu, Arba said indifferently. Qi Xianxian smiled happily. That's great. I heard that young Master Zhu is sick all day. He should come out more often. Tonight's Chrysanthemum Festival, let's drink to our heart's content and not go home until we're drunk. Duanmu glanced at her coolly and said in a low voice, Don't we have to compete early in the morning tomorrow? This was simply like a basin of cold water that instantly extinguished Qi Xuanxuan's enthusiasm. Little Fatty smiled and said, We can still drink a few cups. As for not going home until we're drunk, forget it. After all, they still had to compete tomorrow. However, in these 20 days of competition, each of them had improved a lot. They had benefited a lot from actual combat. Coupled with the spirit tea that Abba had given them, all of them except for Abba had advanced a small step. Jiang Shaoxin had entered the level 1 mastery realm, Lu Yu had advanced to the level 2 initial mastery realm, and Hua Tao had entered the level 2 entry mastery realm. As for the little fatty, his improvement was the greatest. He broke through the threshold of the spirit realm from the peak of level 15 mystic cultivator realm and ascended to the entry level of level 1 spiritual cultivator realm in one leap. Qi Xianxian, Duanmu Qing, and Ma Ta had also improved. They had respectively risen to the initial success stage of level 14 mystic cultivator, the entry stage of level 4 spiritual cultivator, and the peak stage of level 1 spiritual cultivator. Compared to everyone who had more or less taken a small step, Qiao Mu's situation appeared a bit strange. She clearly felt that the barrier to the spirit realm was within her reach, very, very close. But no matter what, he couldn't seem to pass the threshold, and was always blocked in front of the door of the spirit realm. Thinking of this, Abba couldn't help but shake his head, temporarily throwing this question to the back of his mind. When it was almost 10 o'clock in the evening, the group of people boarded 2 separate carriages and arrived at the Zhu family's gate. They picked up young Master Zhu and took him to the busiest street in Wangka City. At the same time, Yu Batian, who was raging in his room, received an uninvited guest. This customer's appearance was very mediocre. At first glance, he looked no different from an ordinary person on the street. However, his eyes were extremely thin and long, and his voice sounded a bit like a eunuch's. Family head you, not only did you not obtain the holy medicine, but you also attracted trouble for no reason. Do you want to let this matter rest? Who are you? Chapter 1759. Yu Batian wasn't a fool. He wanted to compete with family head Zhu for the position of the head of the aristocratic families in Wangka City, but he wouldn't allow his family to be in danger. Who are you? Yu Batian asked in a low voice. Just call me Brother Go. The feminine voice let out a shrill laugh. Yu Batian furrowed his brows. This person was able to sneak into his master bedroom without anyone noticing. It was obvious that the Yu family's guards were useless against him. His cultivation was naturally much higher than anyone in the Yu family. Yu Batian didn't want to make an enemy out of this mysterious person, at least not now. Judging from the Zhu family's attitude, they were definitely planning to start a war with them. Family head, you didn't want to provoke a mysterious enemy in front of a strong enemy. Therefore, he relaxed his expression and put on a respectful attitude as he called out, Brother Go. Brother Go, why are you visiting so late at night? A small brocade box suddenly fell into family head Yu's hand. Send the best person in your family to challenge the arena champion tomorrow. Yu Batian couldn't help but smile bitterly. I'm afraid it'll be difficult. The current champion was a rich man through and through. She probably dropped more than 10 spiritual artifacts in the past 20 days. Brother Go smiled eerily. What do you think is in the box I gave you? It's an elixir that can instantly increase a person's strength by 3 times. What? You only need to send a disciple who's a spiritual master. Imagine if a level 4 spiritual master's strength is increased by 3 times. What will happen? Yu Batian's breathing quickened. Brother Go, do you have a grudge against the young arena champion? Brother Go didn't even bat an eyelid. He just said calmly, that's not something you need to worry about. In short, you are responsible for killing this person for me. Okay. Yu Batian was very happy. He couldn't wait to kill this little miracle doctor girl. That way, without the miracle doctor's treatment, the Zhu family's only son's condition would worsen. As long as the sickly Zhu family continued to fall, family head Zhu would naturally have to take care of him. The Yu family would definitely take over the Zhu family sooner or later. However, my lord, my eldest son has been delayed by some matters and hasn't been able to return to the clan yet. It will probably take another 5 or 6 days. Could you give me a few more days? Brother Go furrowed his brows. Are you sure you can make it in time for the main competition to end? I'm sure. Ubatian nodded with a smile. The arena battle tournament will end in 8 days. My eldest son, Yu Hui, will definitely make it back. It would be better to let that little champion continue to be happy for a few more days until the competition was almost over. Let my son chase that girl who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth down the stage. The feeling of falling from the clouds to the mud must be wonderful. Ha 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 ha. The high-pitched voice laughed. Brother Guzi nodded and said, You're right. I'll leave this matter to you. Yes. Ubatian licked his lips excitedly. Ubatian couldn't help but laugh out loud when he thought about how sullen he had been for the past few days and how he would be able to relax after a few days. Chow, how many more days do you think you can be the champion of the arena? For the sake of smoothness, I'll give your son something that will guarantee his victory. Come with me. Chapter 1760. Auber naturally didn't know that Ubatian and an unknown person were plotting against her behind her back. Even if she knew, she would probably scoff at them. Did they really think that the spirit medicine that could increase cultivation by 3 times was so easy to take? It might feel good for a while, but would they still want to live after taking it? The human body had a tolerance for spirit power. Otherwise, why was it said that one shouldn't take risks when advancing? Once this tolerance was exceeded, the human body wouldn't be able to withstand it and would easily explode and die. Auber didn't know that family head Yu had been instigated to deal with her. At this moment, she was leading young Master Zhu, Qi Xianxian, and the others slowly on the bustling streets of Anka City. Today, pots of chrysanthemums were placed on both sides of the streets of Anka City, but few people actually took out chrysanthemum wine and invited people to taste it. However, it made sense. In this day and age, wine was a luxury item. This year's chrysanthemum festival was purely for appreciating the flowers. There's no wine. Mata looked disappointed. He wanted to taste the chrysanthemum wine of Anka City and see if it was any different from the ones he had eaten before. Auber glanced at him in amusement. You want to drink? Jojo has wine. There's good bamboo leaf wine and homemade winter fruit wine. Which one do you want to drink? Winter fruit wine. Everyone said in unison. Then let's go. Auber pointed at a flower rack made of potted chrysanthemum plants in front of them. A few tables and chairs were placed there for the tourists to rest their feet. When the group walked over, they saw that many people were sitting at the tables and chairs in front of the flower rack. Some people were holding cups and shaking their heads as they commented on the chrysanthemum wine and recited poems. There were also some people sitting around a table, holding a bamboo tablet and racking their brains for something. What are they doing? Mata curiously went over to take a look. After a while, he squeezed out of the crowd and smiled at Auber and the others. There's a small amount of chrysanthemum wine here, but you have to guess at least 3 riddles on the bamboo tablet. Are you going to guess? Qi Xianxian and the others looked at him curiously. Mata quickly shook his head. Don't we have winter fruit wine? Why do you have to fight for the chrysanthemum wine? Qi Xianxian sneered. Actually, you're just not smart enough to guess it. As he spoke, he saw Duanmu Qing walk out from the crowd with a small wine jar in his hand. Everyone's eyes lit up as they looked at him. Duanmu, how many puzzles have you guessed correctly? Upper limit. Everyone was speechless. What's the upper limit? 12 questions. Is everything correct? Qi Xianxian asked curiously as she blinked her eyes. Okay. Everyone sat down at a square table and surrounded it. Then, They pulled out a stool from the side and sat down. Each of them took out a small cup from their inner world and accepted the cup of wine that Duanmu Qing poured for them. They took a sip and smacked their lips. It's too faint. It looks like it has been diluted with water. Mata put down the cup with a disappointed expression. Everyone else put down their cups after tasting a mouthful. What's so good about diluted wine? Abba took out a jade wine gourd from his inner world. Try my winter fruit wine. Everyone made the same gesture, wanting to pour away the wine in their cups and accept Abba's winter fruit wine. Who knew that an old man in ragged clothes would jump out from the side, holding a large bowl with a chipped corner. He smiled at them and said, Don't waste it. Little friends, if you don't want a drink, give it to me. Chapter 1761. The old man opened his mouth and smiled, revealing a row of shiny teeth. Abba saw that the old man had a red nose and was dressed in tattered clothes. Although he looked like a beggar, his spirit and appearance were very good. She couldn't help but find it funny. She nodded and signaled everyone to pour the chrysanthemum wine into the old man's bowl. The old man was beaming with joy. He grinned foolishly at her for a while before holding the big bowl and squatting at the side to drink. Everyone shook their heads helplessly and turned to look at Abba. Abba opened the jade gourd and a strong fragrance of fruit wine floated out of the gourd. The old man who was squatting at the side and drinking the wine like it was water suddenly twitched his nose. He got up from the ground and turned to look in Abba's direction. There were many elderly people sitting in front of the flower stand. When they smelled the wine, they all turned to look at Abba. Wow! Qi Xianxian and the others couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Jojo, you still have such good wine hidden away. You've really hidden it well. Abba couldn't help but feel helpless. Actually, this winter fruit wine was made by Little Tree when he was bored. Naturally, she didn't have the leisure to do so. The reason was that there were too many winter fruits. Even though she had already given Prince Mo a lot of winter fruits, there were still many left in the storage. Little Tree thought that they were taking up space and it was a pity to throw them away, so he took all of them to make wine. Come, let's drink. Mata laughed and raised his cup to everyone. The 9 cups clinked lightly and a mouthful of winter fruit wine went down their stomachs. They only felt that it was sweet and pleasant. The fruit wine in their stomachs emitted a trace of heat. This taste is too good. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but praise. Even someone like her who didn't drink often felt that this fruit wine was very good. There was a trace of sweetness, but it wasn't too sweet. After drinking it, she felt that her muscles and veins were very smooth. It was really good stuff. The old beggar at the side was already drooling. He scratched his ears and cheeks as he stood beside Abba's table with a strange expression. Little girl, is this wine really brewed from the winter fruit? The old man with rosacea asked curiously. It was not like he had never tasted winter fruit wine before, but how could it taste so strong? It's winter fruit wine. Abba nodded with certainty. But these winter fruits had been soaked in holy water for a while. At that time, Abba originally wanted to make chilled winter fruit, but it was soaked there for a long time without being touched. When she remembered, the impatient sapling had already disposed of it. So, what could she say? The old man with rosacea ran to Abba's side and chuckled. Little girl, can you give this old man a sip of your wine? Abba saw his bright eyes staring straight at the jade gourd in her hand. When he spoke, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. It was obvious that he was an alcoholic. Okay, I'll share with you. Abba nodded reluctantly. Since you're an old man. Everyone. Abba held the wine gourd and poured wine for the old man. The old man watched from the side and urged, More. Little girl, don't be stingy. Your wine gourd clearly contains dozens of barrels of wine. Giving this old man a big bowl won't be a loss. Abba's eyes flashed. She poured half a bowl and stopped. Tell me who you are, and I'll fill it up for you. There were so many people present, but no one noticed anything strange about her jade gourd. Why did this old man have better eyesight than others? Chapter 1762. No one would believe him if he said he wasn't a hermit expert. The old man pursed his lips and gave Arbor a sidelong glance. How can a little doll like you talk like that? I'm just an ordinary old beggar. Arbor naturally didn't believe him and snorted softly. Seeing her withdrawing her hand and about to take back the jade gourd, the old man instantly panicked and made a fuss. Hey, what exactly do you want to know, little doll? Tell me. Do you dare to say that you didn't purposely approach me for some purpose? Arbor asked indifferently. The old man immediately put on an innocent look and chuckled. What purpose could this old man have? This old man smelled the wine, and the alcohol bug in my stomach flared up, so I ran over to ask a little doll like you for a cup of wine. The old beggar did his best to put on a, please look at my sincere old face, look. Oh, is that so? Arbor couldn't help but scoff. Stop pretending. With your eyesight, you can tell that my jade gourd is different from the rest at a glance, and you still dare to say that you're not an expert? The old man hastily waved his hand and said, No, it's you who's thinking too much, little doll. After saying that, the old man simply dragged a stool from the side and squeezed his way to Arbor's side to sit down. He said with a grin, Forget it, seeing that you rewarded this old man with a mouthful of wine, this old man will give you something good. So that a little doll like you won't always think that this old man is a swindler. Arbor was a bit amused inwardly, but she didn't show it on her face. No matter how the old man looked at her little stoic face, he couldn't make out any clues. The old man couldn't help but feel a bit exasperated and dissatisfied with her attitude. He pressed, Don't tell me you're not the least bit curious? Shouldn't such a young little girl immediately reveal an interested expression and ask what he was going to give her when she heard someone say that he was going to give her a gift? Why didn't this little fellow in front of him follow the routine at all? A certain Jojo who didn't fall for the old man's trick blinked and asked along with the old man's words, Then what do you want to give me, old grandpa? The old man's face instantly lit up with joy, and he slapped his thigh and said with a smile, That's right. Little girl, don't pretend to be old all day. Arbor's mouth twitched, but she didn't argue. How about this, you give me 2 full bowls, and I'll let you see that good thing. Hearing this, Motta couldn't help but laugh. You old man, don't tell me you're here to cheat us of our wine? Young man, don't talk nonsense. Am I that kind of person? The Jojo's, Jojo, Jojot, Stjs, juice, jot stss, t's s's s, tt, ttss, tt, s have 8, s2, t. Arbor tilted her little head. Old grandpa, other than wine, I also have side dishes to go with it. Do you want some? The old man's eyes lit up when he heard that. Come. You little child, you're so mean. You only thought of side dishes after watching this old man drink for so long. Everyone, this old man was a natural socializer. He didn't feel the least bit embarrassed about extorting a little girl like this. Arbor waved her hand and took out a plate of spicy yellow croakers. She held it in her arms and said, Old grandpa, what good stuff do you have? Chapter 1763. The corners of the old man's mouth twitched. You stingy girl, you really don't act unless you see an incentive. Here, don't say that this old man cheated you of your food and wine. This is for you. Then, he reached into his robes and took out a round transparent ball. He threw it in front of the little fellow and was done with it. The little fellow raised her hand and took a look at the transparent ball, only to see that there was still half a wall of water rippling inside. A unique, richly ornamented 3-story boat, which looked like a model, was drifting with the waves inside. Her small hand shook the transparent ball. Arbor could clearly sense that this was not some condensed mystic domain similar to the heart of paradise. Thus, she could not let her little tree take it in and make it into a new planet. So, what was the use of it? She turned to look at the little old man and pursed her lips. Old grandpa, what is this? It looks quite unique. Qi Xianxian and young Master Zhu both leaned over and took the small ball. They held it in their hands and admired it. Aber, however, did not think much of it. What was the use of giving a small model that could only be admired and played with? You really don't know what's good for you. The old man blew his beard and glared at her. Then, he pointed at Duanmu Qing. Explain it to this little girl. He looked like he was busy drinking and eating and could not be bothered to speak to Aber. Duanmu Qing turned to look at Aber and said softly, Jojo, quickly thank this senior. The old man waved his hand and used his chopsticks to pick up the small yellow croaker. There's no need to thank me. Why don't you bring 2 more dishes to this old man? I was right to say that you were stingy. You were only willing to give me 1 dish. Why aren't you stingy to death? Xiao Mu blinked her large, black eyes. She took the transparent ball that little young Zhu handed over and shook it vigorously. What is it? This is a sealing ball. It can seal large objects inside. When the time comes, the outer seal can be broken and the object inside can be taken. Sealing ball? Never heard of it. Aber raised his hand to touch the sphere and asked curiously, You mean there's a real 3-story ship sealed in this sphere? Duanmu Qing nodded and looked at the old man with some confusion. This old man was dressed in rags and had a wretched appearance. Who would have thought that once he made a move, he would amaze the world with a single brilliant feat? This priceless sealing ball was very rare. It was also very rare in the Divine Continent, let alone in the Shuntian Prefecture. Grandpa, what benefits do you want? Aber turned around and asked the old man. He was slightly wary. I don't have anything valuable to exchange with you. Bah! The old man couldn't help but want to spit on this child's face. How could he not know the extent of this little fellow's wealth? That was someone who could casually drop a spirit tool, yet here he was complaining about being poor in front of this old man. Aber raised his hand and touched his little face that wasn't spat on. He squeezed towards Qi Xianxian with a look of disdain. Why are you spitting on me? Don't deny it when I say that you're stingy. The old man blew his beard and glared. This old man may be poor, but I won't go so far as to cheat a child like you. This thing is for you to play with. You don't have to spend money to exchange for it. Oh. Aber was indifferent. He reached out and kept the sealing ball back into his inner world. The old man was immediately angered to the point of laughter. Look, this little girl did it on purpose. Chapter 1764. This stinky lass was clearly waiting for him to finish his sentence so that she could naturally and calmly keep the item away. Old grandpa, do you want another bowl? Aber asked in a small voice. Bah! Even if he drank himself to death, he wouldn't be able to drink it back. The old man glared at her in annoyance and then placed the empty bowl in front of her. Do you still need to ask? Fill it up. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. This ship is called Red Firmament Blue Waves. Not to mention the ordinary rivers, lakes, and seas, you can even go to the lower starfield and the upper 3 continents. The old man snorted. Aba's eyes lit up when she heard that. Go in the water, swim in the fire? Can you go up to the sky? I already told you that you're called Qi Xiao. The old man angrily reached out his hand and smacked her little head. Then if you give this ship to me, how are you going to go back, old grandpa? Aber raised her hand to cover her head and asked curiously. It's none of your business. I have my own way of going back. The old man suddenly came back to his senses and couldn't help but laugh. You little doll, you've learned how to trick me, haven't you? His answer was obviously admitting that he was from the Divine Continent. Humph, this old man doesn't care about you anymore. The old man, who was in a bad mood after being tricked, angrily took out a wooden wine gourd from his chest. Fill it up. Aber glanced at his gourd and pursed her lips. Even if I pour the entire gourd out for you, it might not be able to fill it up. Don brat, you're really not easy to trick. That's right, this gourd of his was also a treasure. He originally wanted to trick the little girl, but who would have thought that she would see right through him? How infuriating! The old man said angrily. Then I'll pour half of it. Abba looked at the old child helplessly and nodded. She slapped her hand and a stream of wine instantly shot out from the jade gourd. It formed a winding curve and accurately entered the black wooden gourd in the old man's hand. The old man nodded and said, "Little doll, your technique is not bad. Quick, give me more. You stingy doll. How is this half? It's not even a third full." The old man noisily asked Abba to give him half a gourd of winter fruit wine before he clicked his tongue in satisfaction. He reached out and finished the remaining wine in the bowl. Then, he put the bowl into his bosom and waved his hand. He stood up and said, "There's no need to send me off." Everyone was speechless as they watched the old man leave. However, after taking 2 steps, he turned back and took the half plate of small yellow croakers from the table into his arms. Only then did he wave his hand and leave in satisfaction. Qi Xianxian could not help but laugh. This strange old man is really strange. I can't see through this old man's cultivation, Duanmu said calmly. I'm afraid he's a God state expert. Little Fatty could not help being stunned when he heard that. He did not expect that old man was actually a deity realm expert. One had to know that in the 6 prefectures continent, deity realm experts were extremely rare. If a clan had a deity realm expert overseeing it, then it could be considered a medium-sized clan. Young Master Zhu nodded and said, "That's right. The old man is so skilled in martial arts, yet he disguised himself as a ragged beggar and walked around our Shuntian continent. He must be a hidden expert." Abba could not help but secretly twitch the corner of her mouth. She did not know why, but she felt that the old man's ragged clothes could not be so high and mighty. Perhaps it was because he was poor. Chapter 1765. After the old man hugged his wine gourd and walked out of the flower rack, he looked down at his tattered clothes and couldn't help but slap his old hand hard. "You won't be able to swallow your pride." If he had asked for spirit coins from that damn child just now, wouldn't he have been able to get rid of his tattered clothes? Angrily, he found a doorstep and sat down. Then, he took out a communication jade talisman from his pocket and wrote on it, "Third brother, are you blind? The crown prince's wife is stingy. How could he be an interesting person? Don't you know how stingy she is?" Thinking of that expressionless face, the old man couldn't help but feel his teeth ache. In the future, if he were to bring this master back, it would be very lively. The emperor's cold face against his daughter-in-law's expressionless face. Cough cough. Who knows who would win? Abba's group drank 2 more cups of winter fruit wine under the flower rack. During this time, a few old men boldly came forward to ask for more, and Abba gave it all to them. Thus, the other old men sitting under the flower rack also came forward to try half a cup of winter fruit wine. Fortunately, Abba's small jade gourd actually contained dozens of barrels of wine. Even if she gave half to the old man with rosacea, the winter fruit wine inside was enough for thousands of people to drink. There were only a dozen old men present, so it didn't matter. "I really didn't expect that we would meet an old man giving Jojo a gift while we were strolling on the street." Mata couldn't help but sigh with emotion. He had heard of the red Nimbus blue wave ship before, but he couldn't recall it at first. This ship could truly travel between the 6 prefectures of the lower starfield and the 3 prefectures of the upper starfield. As expected, good-looking people would eat and drink well wherever they went. Otherwise, how could you explain why a beggar would give Jojo a gift? Abba didn't think much of it. Although she didn't know what the old man's motive was, she didn't need to guess to know one thing. The old man gave this ship to her in hopes that she would bring Prince Amo back to the Divine Prefecture. However, why did they have to obediently return when someone else summoned them? What kind of joke was this? He would still accept the gift. As for whether he would return it or not, that would depend on his mood. She wouldn't leave the 6 prefectures continent until she dealt with the Clear Sky sect and found Fan Gu and Fan Chioha. It was unknown which rat hole Fan Chioha was hiding in, or whether he had become moldy or stinky. Abba coldly closed his eyes and calmly put away the wine gourd. "Let's go. It's getting late. I need to get a good night's sleep." I still have to play tomorrow morning. Young Master Zhu, on the other hand, seemed rather excited. The fruit wine was mild, and Arbor allowed him to drink half a cup. At this moment, Master Zhu's baby face was very red, and his complexion looked very good. Jojo, how about I come to the underground arena to watch your match tomorrow? Young Master Zhu pleaded. It's not safe in the city recently. If you go out alone, your father will be worried. Arbor said faintly. Even a fool could see that the three noble families in Wenka City were fighting each other. Young Master Zhu's safety would be compromised if he went out recklessly. Zhu Su hurriedly said, I'll bring more people with me. Arbor frowned slightly. You drank half a cup of wine today. You might have a headache tomorrow. Why don't you rest for a few days before going out? Young Master Zhu immediately wilted. Arbor ignored him. She stood up with the others and walked to the carriage parked at the corner of the long street. Chapter 1766. Before they reached the carriage, Arbor's eyes suddenly narrowed. Her footsteps suddenly stopped, and the people around her also stopped with strange expressions on their faces. Suddenly, a group of hooligans with machetes appeared from the corner. The machetes in their hands were brandished at the crowd. However, how could these ordinary hooligans be a match for Arbor and the rest? Qi Xianxian and the rest kicked away the hooligans who got close. However, because there were too many hooligans in the fight, Arbor and the rest were subconsciously separated by a certain distance. Duanmu Qing's expression was cold. He raised his hand and a few thorns drilled out from the ground, directly binding a few men who rushed forward to catch them. In just a few exchanges, several local ruffians and hooligans were hung high on the thorns of the wood brambles, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws while howling. Duanmu Qing acted as though he didn't hear the hooligan screams and took care of a few more before turning to look at Arbor, who was handling the crowd with ease. Arbor's moves were very decisive and powerful. Basically, those hooligans were completely taken care of by her fist before they could even get close to her. Arbor didn't give any face to these people who suddenly rushed out with bad intentions. She also didn't think that she was too heavy-handed. Since they dared to run out to make trouble for her, Xiao Mu, after accepting money, then they were probably prepared to die. The leader of the hooligans had a fierce look on his face. Seeing that he couldn't get anything out of Arbor and the rest, he hurriedly whistled, "Go!" They were just the vanguard team who came to stir up trouble. When the time came, they just had to retreat. However, dreams were beautiful, but reality was extremely cruel. Arbor waved her slender hand and threw the unconscious body of a hooligan onto the leader of the hooligans. The hooligan cried out in pain and took a few steps back. "Stop them," Arbor said calmly. At the same time, a little white squirrel jumped down from her shoulder and scurried back and forth in the crowd. Everyone who was bitten by the little squirrel howled and fell to the ground. Only then did the group of hooligans know fear. They realized that the people in front of them were not people they could provoke. "Go, go, go, go!" Seeing that the reinforcements still hadn't arrived, the local ruffian couldn't help but panic. He had received a large sum of money and brought his men here to stop Arbor's group. To put it bluntly, he had no idea why they had set this up. Seeing that they were going to die in Arbor's hands if this went on, the local ruffian couldn't help but panic. He hurriedly shouted, "Everyone, please stop. Listen to me first." Qi Xianxian couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, you're here to look for trouble but you can't win. Now you know how to beg for mercy? It's useless to shout and beg for mercy." Mata rolled his eyes and said loudly, "You bunch of little bastards, leave your lives here. You dare to cause trouble in front of your grandpa Mata? You deserve to end up like this." Bang! In the midst of the chaos, a loud bang came from where the carriage was parked at the corner of the street. It was as if the entire carriage had been blown up by something. Xiao Mu and the others were taken aback, and they hastily walked over. When they saw that their carriage had been blown to smithereens, Chapter 1767. Abba couldn't help but be enraged. What kind of joke was this? She was the one who hired the carriage. Now that these people blew up her carriage, wouldn't she have to dig out spirit coins to pay for the carriage's repair fees? At the thought of this, Abba couldn't help but gnash his teeth in anger. Qi Xian also stomped her feet and wailed, F***ck. Which bastard dared to blow up your family's great-aunt's carriage? Come out. Abba reached out and lightly tugged at little young Master Zhu's sleeve. Don't run around and don't leave my side easily, okay? Zhu Su wasn't a fool. Although his experience in the pugilistic world was very shallow, he was someone who loved reading and paid attention to thinking. Therefore, he was at most inexperienced in the world, but his brain was still relatively smart. From the looks of it, they seemed to be coming for him. Jojo and the rest were probably implicated by him. At this thought, little young Master Zhu couldn't help but feel a bit gloomy. Jojo, I feel that this group of people is most likely coming for me. I'm sorry, I've made everyone unhappy. Seeing little young Master Zhu's gloomy appearance, Qi Xian couldn't help but chuckle. What does this have to do with you? It's completely because these people don't have eyes and want to bump into our blades. Mata even laughed out loud. It's fine. Let me tell you. I was still fretting that there wouldn't be anyone for me to practice with after I advanced. Although these people's martial arts skills are mediocre, it's still better than nothing. His aggrieved tone made it seem like this group of local ruffians and hooligans were completely a bunch of trash that simply couldn't take a few punches from him. At this time, another group of people came out from behind the exploded carriage. They were completely different from this group of small fries with meager martial arts skills. These people who jumped out to besiege them were basically all level 14 mystic cultivators and above. There were a total of 30 people who came. They surrounded Arbor and the rest in the middle, while the outer layer was a grandiose group of local ruffians. At a glance, the situation seemed to be very unfavorable for Arbor and the rest. In fact, in the eyes of Arbor and the others, the latter group was also very weak. Take the little fatty for example. He could send 2 people flying with a single punch, so one could imagine how much of an overstatement the cultivation of these newly emerged level 14 mystic cultivators was. The advancement of one's cultivation base was divided into 2 categories: cultivation through hard work and rapid advancement through medicine. For trash like them who relied solely on medicine, when they met an opponent of the same level, they would be killed in an instant. After Arbor dealt with the people around him, he tugged on young Master Zhu's sleeve and took a few steps forward. She only saw a black shadow, like a great rock spreading its wings, fly in front of her with a whoosh. Raising his hand, he grabbed young Master Zhu, who was beside her, without any explanation. How could Arbor allow anyone to lay a finger on young Master Zhu? With a fierce kick, he took the opportunity to push Master Zhu behind him. Without hesitation, a row of silver needles flew out. They were divided into 3 parts: the upper part, the middle part, and the lower part. They went straight for the man's eyes, chest, and lower abdomen. These 3 ruthless rows of needles came rather quickly. The man was startled and hastily retreated backward with swift reflexes. Following that, he dodged and hovered in the air for 2 laps. When he steadied himself, he looked back. He saw that several local ruffians and hooligans didn't escape and became his scapegoats. At this time, these local ruffians all had silver needles stuck in their chests. They were foaming at the mouth and had their eyes tightly shut. It was obvious that they had already fainted. Chapter 1768. It didn't look like a lethal poison, but it was indeed vicious to be able to cause a person to faint in an instant. Who knew if these local ruffians and hooligans could wake up again? That person clearly didn't expect Arbor's reaction to be so fast. After failing to grab him, he immediately drew a flexible sword from his waist and charged behind Arbor in the direction of little young Master Zhu. How could Arbor let him touch Zhu Su? His gaze sharpened, and a stream of water coiled around his palm and abruptly struck the man's sword-wielding wrist. As a result, that man's flexible sword abruptly shifted to the side, and he also dodged to the side. A powerful spiritual energy seeped out of the flexible sword tip and pounced toward Arbor and little young Master Zhu from a distance, abruptly creating a spiritual energy vortex. Arbor promptly made a decision and set up a defensive barrier in front of him, blocking all of the man's attacks. A shooting star powder was mercilessly flung over. With a series of clanking sounds, the man used his flexible sword to hastily deflect that shooting star powder, but more than half of the local ruffians and hooligans around him were caught in the crossfire. This group of local ruffians and hooligans fell to the ground and wailed as they rolled around under the shooting star powder. Qi Xianxian and the others didn't care about their lives and either stepped on them or kicked them away to prevent them from blocking the way. They didn't take them seriously at all. This caused the group of people to wail and cry for their parents. All of them rolled around on the ground, hating that their parents didn't give them an extra pair of hands so that they could quickly crawl away from this bloody battle. Little Fatty's group of 7 started fighting with the group of level 14 and above mystic cultivators. Although the other party had the advantage in numbers, their combat strength wasn't too strong, so they were relatively easy to deal with. As for Arbor, he only needed to protect that little young Master Zhu. When the mystic cultivators who arrived later saw that they couldn't take down a few young men and women despite having so many people on their side, they couldn't help but feel anxious, and their attacks also intensified. Someone roared, "Berserk Tiger," and a ferocious tiger suddenly jumped out from behind him. Qi Xianxian glanced at it and couldn't help but sneer. "Where's the mystic beast you summoned?" As soon as he finished speaking, the golden lion roared and jumped out majestically. Without any explanation, it slapped the tiger summoned by the man and sent it flying. Wah! That level, 14 mystic cultivator spat out a mouthful of blood and looked at Qi Xianxian in horror. To be able to kill his own Xian beast with a single slap, how powerful must it be? If it weren't for the fact that his beast was on the verge of death, he wouldn't have suffered such a severe backlash. The golden-haired lion seemed to have entered a no-man's land, sweeping away all the little ruffians in front of it with one paw. The person who was fighting Arbor saw that the situation was not good, so he hurriedly gave a look to his disciples. He stretched out his leg and kicked a few of the ruffians' buttocks, making them fly in front of Arbor, while he quickly retreated. Arbor coldly swept a glance over and tossed little young Master Zhu to Qi Xianxian and the others to protect. She had already shot out and leaped onto the snow leopard's back in a few steps, patting its head. The snow leopard quickly chased after him and madly dashed around the streets with the man for a while before stopping in front of a vermilion gate. The gate was tightly shut, and there was a mighty stone lion squatting on each side of the gate. A vermilion plaque hung in the middle with the words, "U Estate," written on it. Arbor's cold gaze landed on the U Estate's tightly shut gate, and an ebony talisman automatically floated into her hand. Chapter 1769. With a light flick of her finger, the ebony talisman quickly disappeared into the air. Qiao Mu expressionlessly raised her hand, and several hundred normal talisman papers rose from her fingertips in the blink of an eye. They flew up in an orderly fashion and floated above the U Estate in a single file, imperceptibly constructing a large-scale talisman matrix. This large talisman formation was made up of 324 ordinary yellow talismans. Once the talisman formation was formed, unless the people of the U residence broke the formation from the inside, they would be locked inside and unable to find a way out. This was a maze array, and it was one that Arbor had personally researched and improved. If she used a large maze array and threw out 648 yellow talismans, she could lock down the entire street where the U residence was located. When Qi Xianxian and the others arrived, they saw Arbor sitting in front of the U residence with a stool. Her stoic face was expressionless. "Jojo." Qi Xianxian hurried over, followed by the pale-faced young Master Zhu. Arbor raised her head and glanced at him. She softly reprimanded, "Useless. You're so scared that your face turned white over such a small matter?" Although she was reprimanding him, she shot out several beams of white light with a flick of her finger. Silver needles entered his acupoints, and Zhu Su's complexion improved slightly. Arbor retrieved the silver needles from the air and tossed him a small medicine bottle. "Take it." Young Master Zhu stuttered as he took the medicine bottle and took a calming pill. Only then did he feel the panic in his heart subside slightly. He had been well protected by his father since he was young. He had never seen such a chaotic situation of being hunted down. He didn't expect to hit the jackpot on his first trip out. Little Fatty looked at young Master Zhu sympathetically. Although his family background was not as good as young Master Zhu's, his body was strong. He was not like young Master Zhu, who panted after running a few steps and his heart pounded wildly. When your body fully recovers, cultivate properly. Little Fatty patted young Master Zhu's shoulder and said with a smile, "Your body is too weak." The youth blushed slightly and hurriedly nodded. "Jojo, why are we blocking the entrance of the Yu residence?" Qi Xian looked curiously at Aber and asked. "Compensation." Aber said indifferently. He didn't feel at all that it was ridiculous for him to block the entrance of the Yu residence and ask for compensation. The people from the Yu residence had smashed her carriage into smithereens. Shouldn't this debt be settled with them? Did they really think that Aber was a pushover? She wasn't a fool. She had to compensate, and she had to compensate 10 times the amount. Otherwise, any cat or dog would be able to bully her and casually take away her ride, wouldn't it? Looking at the completely serious expression on that stoic little face, everyone silently suppressed their laughter and put on a solemn expression as they nodded in unison. "That's right. Compensation should be made. Their family head is called Ubatian, right?" Mata said with a smile. "Should we call inside?" Aber nodded. "Yes. Tell Ubatian to pay 1,000,000 spirit coins as compensation for the loss of the carriage." Everyone was speechless. "You're asking for such an exorbitant price. Does your conscience not hurt?" "All right." Mata cleared his throat and immediately shouted at the Yu family, "Family head Yu, we are the ones who were chased by your family's disciples just now. We've already sealed off the Yu residence. Don't try in vain to escape with your own abilities. That's impossible. Obediently hand over 1,000,000 spirit coins as a fine, and this debt will be temporarily written off." Chapter 1770. At this time, Ubatian, who was in the inner chamber of the Yu residence, received the news from his disciple and hurried out to look at the sky. Above the house, a dark and gloomy vortex had replaced the originally bright sky. When everyone looked up, they could no longer see the blue sky and white clouds. All they could see were small vortexes. "Patriarch, something bad has happened." Among the Yu family elders who had heard the news, an old man walked out and said with a frightened expression, "Someone has set up a talisman formation above our Yu residence." "What? A talisman formation?" Patriarch Yu asked with a puzzled expression. "Who would act so rashly against our Yu family?" At this time, Mata's loud shout reached the ears of everyone in the Yu family. Everyone, including Ubatian, heard Mata's shout as long as they weren't deaf. Ubatian trembled with anger. These people are really bold. They actually dared to ask for 1,000,000 spirit coins? Did they really think that he, Ubatian, was a fool? Not to mention 1,000,000 spirit coins, Ubatian didn't even plan to pay half a spirit coin. "Go, gather all the Yu family disciples. Later, follow this old man to the main gate." He didn't believe that a mere talisman formation could stop so many people in the Yu family from going out at the same time. Ubatian waved his hand in high spirits, instructing the elders to gather all the disciples and gather at the main gate. The elder who had spoken earlier took a step forward with a face full of worry. He raised his head to look at the sky formed by the vortex and helplessly said, "Patriarch, there are many times when you and I have never heard of or seen the methods of a symbol master. We don't know what level of talisman master the other party is. If it's a high-level great talisman master, I feel that our family really might not be able to get out of this talisman formation this time." Ubatian couldn't help but be furious. "Elder son, why do you always boost the morale of others and diminish our own? I don't believe that such a small talisman formation can be used. There are so many people in the Yu family. Can't we just fight our way out? We're locked up in the residence. Are we just going to sit here and do nothing?" The elder sighed. "Patriarch, it's better to be cautious. Since the other party came in such a menacing manner and demanded that we hand over 11 million spirit coins, we won't be allowed to leave the house if we don't. That means that the other party has made thorough preparations beforehand. Even if we force our way out, we might suffer heavy losses. Ubatian glanced at the elder. Scared? Just stay at home and don't go out. After saying this, he flicked his sleeves and left. The elders looked at each other, and one of them couldn't help but ask, Elder son, what do you think of this matter? Elder son shook his head and sighed as he looked at Patriarch Yu's obstinate back. Then, he followed behind Patriarch Yu with several other elders. Soon, more than 300 young disciples of the Yu family were summoned to Patriarch Yu's side. Family head Yu looked at the disciples and said with righteous indignation, Everyone, you should have heard what the person outside the door said. As a member of the Yu family, I, like all of you, abhor this. We absolutely won't bow our heads to the evil forces outside. Our Yu family can be beheaded and shed blood, but we will never abandon our belief in fighting for the glory of our family. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.